the final system. Now we move to TRL 9. So TRL 9, the system is proven and ready for full commercial deployment. So as you can see in the image now, the system could be tested in with actual users. The technology is in its final form. Obviously, as we discussed on the previous slides, that the product is finally in able to go to the operating conditions and user validations. So the actual system is proven through successful operations and operating environment, and now it's ready for full commercial deployment. At this stage, you also need to understand the fast manufacturing and all those things, and we'll discuss that as well. Now, examples include 24/7 manufacturing, meeting cost, yield, output targets, quality, and everything. And now the emphasis shifts more towards statistical process control. So the product is ready. Now you basically go into its manufacturing and market. So this was basically an overview of all the technology readiness level systems. I just used a very basic example to take you through all these, and I think many of you might be knowing all these already. Now, there's another example of these chevrons that were built by NASA and so example you can understand the TRL levels progress. So sonic booms was a problem that used to from jet planes, and to reduce that sound, the engineers started working initially at TRL 1, as you see on the bottom of the slide. Fundamental investigations of air mixing device were done. So a lot of different designs were being studied. At that stage, they did some basic research in fluid physics and all, and understood the concepts. In early 1990s, they reached to TRL 3, where multiple designs were done, and they started actual experiments with these designs to see which designs are better in terms of reducing the sound. Then during 1995 and 1997, it reached to model tests for acoustics and aerodynamics. But again, that was more of simulation and tests done with a larger engine, but in a laboratory conditions. When they reached TRL 6, it was integrated to the plane, and aerodynamics tests were done. At TRL 7, the validations of concept were done in flight, and then TRL 8, 9, they were actually integrated and were deployed in a lot of engines and airplanes. So the problem that they were facing of high sonic booms reduced. So again, this is a stage of development of a product through various TRLs. Again, a very simple example, so I thought to bring it forward. Now, also in terms of the interest levels at different stages of the technology readiness. Now, while most of us are coming from academia, and we start doing some basic research, validating concepts, or maybe doing a proof of concept study in the laboratory. So as you can see on the lower axis, you see the technology readiness levels 1 to 9. And then in the yellow bar here, you see at what stage it is, from basic research 1, and the 2 is applied research. So applied research goes till level of 3 and 4. The product development or the technology development happens between 5 and 7, and the final development and deployments happen between the levels of 9, where the manufacturing thing is also ready along with it. So as you see, like generally TRLs up to 4 or 5 could be done by academia, government labs, but at this stage, usually when we see like between TRL 3 and 7, it's also very important for entrepreneurs, because this is where we take up entrepreneurship. So while the basic research or applied research within the lab is completed, now you do a startup, you start building the product. So for entrepreneurs, I think where they generally start between TRL 3 and 4 and take it to TRL. So I mean, again, the startup can go to again TRL 9 and 10. But this is the very critical stages for them. And again, when we talk about resources, so academia and government labs are funded through government support. In between, there's also a resource crunch because entrepreneurs who might not be having enough capital, they start developing those. And once again, the products are demonstrated and all, then large businesses can take it over, and private sector venture capitalists and all also come in. But now government has also like kind of started a lot of innovation programs, and government funding now goes up to TRLs 7 and 8 also, with various stages. So there are certain number of programs. Uh, AICT and MHRD have launched some initial level programs. BIRAC, DBT, DST. Most of them are having certain programs that help you to take through TRL levels 3 to 7 and 8. I'll also talk about certain challenging technology readiness levels. And again, as we were understanding in the previous slides, one was about the lack of resources and all, because when you are at a startup stage, you might not be having enough resources to develop that product, or maybe has to be checked. In terms of business, you have to lower down the cost, you have to enhance the production times. You also need to think about higher return on investment. In terms of innovation challenges, the marketing and sales research is also required, the customer feedback is required. And then there are certain process challenges because, again, as I was mentioning, like TRL 4-5 goes to the universities. Up to TRL 5, generally the universities take it forward, but then they lack resources and experience to take it actually to the market sometimes. And industry at these early TRLs have no time or interest. So for these TRLs specifically between 4 to 7, it's very important that academia and industry try and work together. Where the scientists bring in their basic knowledge and principles, and then the industry helps bringing their practical product development experience to finally build the product. So that was about TRLs. I'll be talking a bit about manufacturing readiness levels and subsequently investment readiness levels also. So when we talk about manufacturing readiness levels, it's very important while we develop the technology and go through all the TRLs, but at one stage we need to think about the manufacturing as well, because you might be developing a new technology, there might not be standard manufacturing processes for those. So you also have to parallelly develop a manufacturing process along with your technology. It's very important for disruptive products that have not been developed in the past. So in that case, you still need to search about raw material suppliers, getting the manpower. So in manufacturing readiness levels, we actually consider a lot of different factors. Now we'll be discussing a bit about different MRLs, but giving the definition. So the manufacturing readiness levels are defined to provide an understanding of relative maturity and risks associated with manufacturing technologies, manufacturing products and processes. So it's more in terms of setting up a production enterprise where the product that maybe we were discussing in TRL could be manufactured. It's quite common for manufacturing readiness to be based by technology readiness or design stability. So it's not a thing that you think about once you have completed the product development. The manufacturing readiness is a parallel activity, and it needs to be thought about right in the duration when you're developing your technology. So we'll also see a comparative, like where exactly at the level of TRLs we should look into the manufacturing readiness. Now, the important aspect is to identify the risks associated with manufacturing, and its management must begin at the earliest stages of technology development. And these things should be kept in mind at a stage. So once we reach TRL 3, I mean, the best way would be to start thinking about these things right from TRL 1 and 2. But once you reach TRL 3, it's very important to understand and keep in mind the manufacturing readiness levels parallelly as you go through the technology readiness levels. So as mentioned in the last line also, so the MRL assessment should continue vigorously throughout each stage of the program's life cycle. Now, This is the only slide I'll put in terms of manufacturing readiness levels, but it speaks a lot. So I thought I'll put it here. And you also compare this with the technology readiness. Now, as you see, like initially it's pre-material solution analysis, then you go to material solution analysis. The technology in terms of the components, the system comes in, then engineering and manufacturing development, production and deployment. So while you go through these TRLs also, so TRL 1, 2, 3, then TRL 4, 5, and 6 are in terms of technology development, components and systems. Again, parallel, you think about the manufacturing readiness levels also. So if you see in the dark green bars that are there, so generally at TRL 1, 2, and 3, you also think about manufacturing readiness levels of 1, 2, and 3, where manufacturing concepts are to be identified in terms of, again, basic research, and advanced technology development. So here we are thinking more in terms of manufacturing something. Now, so it could be both ways. One is like manufacturing a very innovative product. One could be, again, coming up with a very good manufacturing process for maybe existing products also. So the manufacturing readiness levels could be understood in that sense as well. Now, at MRL 3 and between MRL 3 and 4, we need to understand the manufacturing feasibility, the manufacturing processes. So you think about how exactly you can automate, what are the resources that you need, the key processes that you need to incorporate, those are identified, and producibility assessments are initiated. So you start thinking about how you will build a manufacturing line or an assembly line for the particular product. Now, between MRL 4 and 5, which is again at similar stages of technology readiness levels 4 and 5 also, the manufacturing processes are emerging. Again, the producibility assessments that you started in the previous MRL, it is an ongoing thing through the MRL 4 as well. The manufacturing cost drivers are also identified. This is completed. Long lead items are identified and equipment in a relevant environment. So in this case, what you do is your kind of manufacturing chain or your automation process, things are in place, and you can actually try and do a demonstration that the manufacturing process will work. Again, like certain things will keep on coming in place, and the processes are updated for more cost effectiveness, faster turnaround times. But this is at an initial stage where you are ready to actually put the product in a manufacturing line and produce the product. At level of 6, it's in production representative environment. So manufacturing processes are finally being developed with the kind of equipment and all that you have of 5. The producibility is improved, and its improvement will keep on all through the MRL 6. You have to do trades, supply chain management comes, your raw material distributors and all those things. So at this production stage, manufacturing readiness level of 6, you also need to identify that the supply chain management structure is in place. Now, when we move to manufacturing readiness level 7, the pilot line demonstration is ready for a low rate initial production. So now the automated processes and all are ready, but we can do the initial production at a low rate. So while the product is going to a pilot scale for marketing, you need a few thousand units. So that production process is ready. So the process maturity is demonstrated at this stage. All the materials for a low rate initial production are ready. The manufacturing processes are proven. The supply chain is stable. Now, by giving a very, very simple example, for example, when I'm at an emerging manufacturing process, I can use a 3D printer or something to do a readiness is not in place. When we start doing prototypes and pilots in market, so we have some low rate initial prototype low rate initial production process ready with us, so that maybe we can do a faster turnaround. Maybe instead of 9 months to build a prototype, now I can take 9 days to build one system. And at this stage, when your demonstration is ready for the low rate initial production, All materials should be ready, the manufacturing processes are proven, and the supply chain for low rate initial production is stable. So in this case, the stability means that you're able to get the raw material. Again, like supply chain disruptions could happen, like we saw in COVID last year. The supply chain disrupts in a way that you're not able to get the initial raw material that you need. So you need to stabilize on that. Maybe you can partner with multiple people or have a robust supply chain. Then when we reach to manufacturing readiness level 8, so the low rate initial production is in place, but you're getting yourself ready for a fast rate production. So the manufacturing processes are operating at target quality, cost, and performance. So while in MRL 7, we were basically demonstrating that our pilot line is ready for low rate initial production. Here, the low rate initial production is already in place, and you assess the performance, quality, and cost. And supply chain is established and is meeting the lead times in terms of your output that you have to give or in terms of your commitments to customers. And then you eventually reach to the fast rate production or the final stage where we are at a lean production. So everything is automated. Now you don't need resources which are redundant. You have standardized the processes and you can do the production in as less cost as possible with the automation or with the technical manpower that is available. So at this stage, the Lean Six Sigma principles are in place. You're meeting or exceeding the cost demand, cost requirements, cost factors, and the schedule and performance goals are being met. So as you understood, the complete manufacturing readiness level rotates around having a manufacturing capability for the product or technology that we earlier discussed, or maybe for an entirely new product or system that you are developing. And for that, the market may not be having initial components. The market may not be even having a supply chain. So how do you establish a supply chain? And then finally, you meet your targets of manufacturing the product in a particular cost, at a particular schedule in the numbers that you want, and the quality and performances are taken care of. So that's broadly about the manufacturing readiness levels. There's also a term that we call investment readiness level. Now, as we were discussing in the first slide itself, that in certain businesses, there may not be a clear demarcation in TRLs, because if we go to a business model case where a technology development is not happening per se, for instance, we can take service-based markets, e-commerce, many other service-based examples are there where we're not actually developing a product, and we may not even be developing a manufacturing line, but it's more about the offering that we provide. So while TRLs and MRLs could be part of this, there might be certain cases where investment readiness does not need to take care of those things if a product is not being offered. So now this scale was primarily defined, as I mentioned, like for more of like software products or service-based things, where we're not bringing in a physical touch and feel product, but we're bringing more of services also. So as you see, the investment readiness levels also give an idea about the investment readiness in terms of who will invest and how much you're ready to. So it also depends on the business readiness that we have. So today I might just be having an idea. I don't have a plan. So I'm at a very early stage. I need to start even working on the business model canvas. So I have not reached an investment level. But once I start doing the first pass of the business model canvas, then I'll be reaching to my investment readiness 1. So before I think explaining this slide even more in detail, I'll explain a little bit about the business model canvas that we have. So we start filling it at different stages. The first thing that you need to identify is your customer segments. So you start filling it from the right side. Who are your customers? So once you identify a challenge, once you have that idea, like, okay, this is what I have to work on, then along with the challenge, you also identify who would be the customer. So if I am facing the challenge, people like me are also facing the challenge. So we could be the customers. Now, customer could be an individual like me or an industry or an institution, any segment of customer could be there. So you need to clearly identify who would be the target customer. Is it any common man, or is it one particular segment of people who are doing something, maybe healthcare professionals, maybe social activity people. So you need to identify, again, maybe related to occupations and different things. So once the customer segment is identified, whether it's direct to customer or business to business, or it's a business to government, what kind of customer segment is there, then you need to identify the kind of relationships you have with customers, the revenue streams and all. On the right side, you see the key partners, key activities, key resources. So this is more when you're actually starting to do business. So while on the right side, you kind of more work towards understanding what you're going to do, on the right side, you plan on how exactly the business will be driven. And in between comes the value proposition that you actually bring to the table to a customer. So value proposition is something that needs to be worked upon as well at a very early stage. Now in key partners, again, as we were discussing in the manufacturing readiness slides also, you need to identify who will be your suppliers, who will be your distributors, and other things. The key resources in terms of, again, maybe do you have the manufacturing resources, do you have the requisite manpower, team, and all that. Key activities is what all major activities you are going to undertake. So it could be customer acquisition plans and all those things. The cost structure and revenue streams are also important. So the cost structure basically defines what would be the cost of the product. Now, there are various ways to calculate it, but generally when we think about putting a product, the first thing we need to identify is the bill of materials, what all need to be incorporated and how much I'll acquire it for. So with that, you can calculate a bill of materials. Okay, this much is the raw material that are required to build this product. In the cost structure, you also involve your OPEX, the operational expenditures like your electricity, building, manpower, and all those things. So getting on an average of that, you can identify that this is the cost of manufacturing for my product. Now you have to come up with the cost of sale for the particular product. And in between, you have to keep your margins, your distributors' margins, supply chain margins, and all those things. Sorry, the distributor network and retailers and all those margins are to be kept. And keeping all those in consideration, what would be the final price you will sell the product at? Also, in this case, we need to consider about our competition. So what are the competitive prices? What are the prices of the competitive products in the market? So those considerations are also to be made. And then the revenue streams again. So where exactly will the revenues come from? Who are your first people, or what different revenue streams could be there? Am I selling one direct product to somebody, or along with the product, there's also a service that goes in, like maintenance, for example. We procure automobiles, so there's a one-time cost, and then there's a service cost that keeps